All right. Welcome. Nice to have you here. So today I'm going to be wrapping up the five-part series, exploring the core lessons that are involved if and when you have challenges in manifesting something consciously. Of course, these are important lessons regardless. So they're really useful things to know about and to explore, which is why we're exploring them. So that's what we're going to be talking about today is the fifth installment. Maybe I left the most important for the last. We'll find out. So before I get into that, let me just be clear about the overall intention for this meeting, for all meetings that I host, which is to support you in self-knowledge, because from my perspective, self-knowledge is where it's at. Self-knowledge is what we're really here for. All the other stuff is interesting, useful, maybe, so far as it is supportive of self-knowledge. Otherwise, it's kind of a waste of time, because if you think about it, everything that we experience is transient. That includes all the stuff. So anything that you achieve or accomplish in your life, as nice as it might be, is transient. So you can't keep it forever. I would say, you could even explore whether it's possible to keep it at all, whether you ever even have it. We'll leave that for another day. But it is something to ponder. So nonetheless, at the very least, it is for sure transient. And so to the degree that it is supportive of self-knowledge, then, as I've already said, I view that as useful. But otherwise, what are you going to do with it? You might temporarily make your life more comfortable. You might temporarily have some distraction or entertainment, which is all fine. However, will it really give you the lasting satisfaction that you want? That's the real question. And I'm proposing the self-knowledge is what offers that. Because while you don't get to keep all the rest of it, yourself is always here. As they say, wherever you go, there you are. So yourself is what is the constant, while everything else is constantly changing. So that is the real aim here. And so, as I said, this is the fifth in a series of talks in which we're taking a look at these five core lessons. So far, we covered. What did we cover? We covered, I don't know, I don't remember the exact order in which we covered them, but we covered acceptance, we covered forgiveness, we covered love, we covered care. Today, we're going to be exploring what? You may be wondering, we're going to be exploring awareness. As I proposed, I think it is probably, maybe, possibly the most important. They're all important. If they weren't important, I wouldn't have probably probably I wouldn't have done that to you if they were not all important. But this one may be the most important because without awareness, the rest of it is not going to really quite do it. I don't think. And with awareness, everything else is I'll use a word supercharged, supercharged. So awareness is pretty important, and we're going to explore that. So the context in which we're I'm talking about these lessons, even though they are broadly applicable and they're not exclusively limited to this one specific context, the context in which I am exploring them is when you are wanting to manifest something and you're following the basic principles for doing so, and you're not achieving success. In that case, then my proposal to you is that one or more of these lessons is applicable. And by learning what you need to learn about one or more of these lessons, it will help you. So let's say that, well, let me take one step back for people. I know not you, but maybe somebody somewhere might be listening to this right now who might have some doubts, might have many doubts, might have a doubt about this business about manifesting anything. Because some people, of course, are completely on board. They say, I'm all about manifesting stuff. I want more stuff. I need more money. I need more love. I need more houses. I need more six-pack abs. I need more stuff. I need all of it. I need those things. So some people are really on board with that. They have no problem, no qualms whatsoever. And that's great. So if you're one of those people, great. Now, for those few people who might object, who might say, I don't know about that. That sounds very unspiritual. That doesn't sound at all like anything that would interest me. Let me just briefly, hopefully briefly, uh, suggest to you that there is value in consciously manifesting things in your life. And if you think about it, here you are, you're like in this life, you have this life, however you think about it, in, have, whatever way you conceive of it. And it seems like it just keeps on showing up. You keep showing up, life keeps showing up, your life keeps showing up, all this stuff is happening. And try as you might to be spiritually and non-material and to transcend the world and all that. Still, there are some things that are bothering you, some things that probably have to do with health, relationships, and or money. Because those are the big three. Those are the things that kind of bother people, they struggle with. So I'm willing to bet one or more of those things is a struggle for you. And you could take the approach of saying, well, I know that it's all an illusion and I'm just going to transcend it. Uh, and my question to you is, how well is that working for you? Because if it's not working well for you, then you might want to consider the possibility that there might be another way that might work better instead of just trying to transcend. Sometimes it's actually more efficient to consciously manifest things. I know that might seem strange, but it's true. So the basic formula is this: if you can let it go easily, then let it go. Obviously, I mean, if you have a desire to have the mansion, uh, and you don't really, it's not really yours. It's not really important to you, but you superficially have that desire, and then you go to all the work of manifesting it, and then plus on top of that, then you got to maintain it. You got to pay taxes on it. Why would you do that to yourself if it's not really truly your desire? If it's just what I call a borrowed desire. We got a lot of borrowed desires, stuff that we just took on because of our parents and our teachers and our friends and Facebook and whatever. So if it's not truly yours, then the best, easiest, most efficient thing to do is to let it go. So if you can do that easily, then by all means do. And so awareness plays a big role in that, by the way. So we'll be getting to that. Um, However, there are those things that you don't seem to be able to just let go of. Maybe that's because those things are actually your desires. And while it may be possible to ultimately to transcend them by letting them go, for people who are living in this world, that's sometimes a challenging, unnecessarily challenging and difficult approach. It may sometimes actually be easier just to make the money or sort out the relationship stuff or whatever it might be. So, um, understanding the laws that govern manifestation, learning your relationship with that, learning how to work with that can be useful, can be skillful, not only for material attainment, but also for spiritual growth. Because if you're wasting a lot of time struggling with trying to transcend and let go of something for years and years and years and years and years and years and years, it's still not working, it might be a lot faster and easier just to manifest it. So that's all I'm gonna say about that for right now. So the basic principles then involved in manifesting something consciously are not that difficult, although we usually make them more difficult than they are. But actually, it's fairly simple because in our everything in the manifest world is energy. I talk about this every meeting pretty much, so I'm not going to go into detail on it, but I briefly touch upon it and just say, notice that we could say that the entire your entire knowledge of the manifest reality comes through your experience. So you know about the manifest reality because of your experience. There's nothing outside of your experience that you could know about. So in that sense, we could say that manifestation is synonymous with experience, or particularly with your experience. Now, I know that sometimes that doesn't seem to be the case because sometimes people say, yeah, but it seems like there's something out there apart from my experience. But still, notice, how do you know about that? Through your experience. So whether you and importantly, your experience, if you break that down and you notice what does that actually consist of, it consists of your five senses, right? So you see things, you hear things, you feel things, you taste things, and you smell things. Sometimes people say, but I think about things. Yes. And how do you know, how are you aware of thoughts? In what way do you think? You will notice that you think by seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, and smelling. Because if you were unable to hear, see, feel, smell, or taste, could you have a thought? You could ponder that. And after you've pondered it, you will have to conclude that no, you cannot. So thoughts are also experienced the same as everything else through five senses. So you experience as five senses. So then we've kind of reduced this to manifestation, at least as far as you know, is at the very least we could say it's known through five senses. If there's anything there apart from five senses, we don't know about it. So what we're really dealing with are five senses. Now, five senses are all energy, because seeing is energy. I mean, think about it like colors, light is all measurable in terms of energy. Sound, all measurable in terms of energy, etc. It's all measurable as energy. It's energy. So we're really talking about energy. So everything is in the manifest realm is energy, and energy then, in order to uh, work with energy, one of our most important tools is attention. So whatever you can sustain your attention on, that's where your energy will go. So if you want to manage the energy, if you want to direct the energy, then you do that through your attention. So you have to know what you want. You have to have an intention. If you don't, then you can't manifest consciously. You could manifest a lot unconsciously because you might have a lot of unconscious intention. But if you want to manifest consciously, you have to know what you want. So you have to have a conscious intention. Then you have to sustain your attention on that in order to direct the energy to it. So that's kind of it. Well, the problem then becomes, first of all, a lot of people don't know what they want. And now I go into this in probably too much detail a lot of the time. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on that today. But just if you're new to any of this, if you're new to my take on things, then just trust me. You might be surprised to find that you don't actually know what you want. You know a lot about what you don't want, and you probably think that what you want, you might think you know what you want, although a lot of times people are able to recognize that they don't know what they want. But sometimes people think they know what they want, but what they think they want is really what they don't want. Strange as that might seem. So getting clarity on what you really want is in and of itself the first most important task. But let's say that you've done that. Let's say you actually know what you want. Well, then all you got to do is just sustain your attention on that. Easy peasy. Enough energy goes to it, and eventually it has to manifest in all ways. Problem then becomes you can't sustain your attention on it, not for long enough. Instead, your attention goes to other things, oftentimes things that directly or indirectly oppose what you want. So I call those things interference. So if you have enough interference, then you won't be able to manifest what you want because you try to put your attention on the thing that you want, but instead your attention goes to other things which either directly or indirectly oppose what you want. I'll give you an example. I'll use the standard example. If I have a desire for $1 million, that's my intention. I get clarity on that. I want $1 million. I'm really clear about that. I definitely want $1 million. Super, super clear. I try to put my attention on it, and then what happens is that I've got some limiting beliefs that come up. Things that say, well, the only way to have $1 million is to work really, really hard doing stuff that I don't want to do, and I don't want to do that. So instead of my attention going to having $1 million, my attention goes to working really hard doing stuff I don't want to do. Well, guess what I'm probably doing? I'm probably working really hard doing stuff I don't want to do instead of having $1 million. So, and that it would be very unlikely that there would only be one such belief. There are probably a lot of limiting beliefs. So the attention is going to all of those different things, which are directly opposed to what it is that I want. So therefore, no big surprise that I'm not actually manifesting what I want. I'm manifesting all kinds of other stuff. Okay, now let's say that you understand all of that and you have clarity about what you want and you understand about interference and you bring awareness to the limiting beliefs, you write them down so that you have a list of all the limiting beliefs, and then you go through processes to effectively release those limiting beliefs so you don't have any more of those interfering. So then you should be able to just manifest whatever it is that you want, right? Well, in most cases, yes, that will be sufficient. In some cases, however, it doesn't work. And so that's what this series is about, is when you follow those basic guidelines, you know what you want, you put your attention on it, you discover what's interfering with that, particularly in the form of limiting beliefs, you release those limiting beliefs so that you can more and more sustain your attention on what you want. You're doing that consistently for days, weeks, months, maybe even years, and you're not getting the complete results. Maybe you get some partial results, maybe you just get apparently no results. So then what? And that's what this series is about. So my proposal is that when you think of things in as energy, then what I'm talking about makes sense. It's kind of easy to understand it. So you're directing energy. If you can direct sufficient energy to whatever it is that you want, then it will manifest in all ways. If you cannot direct enough energy to it, it won't. And so obviously, as I've already pointed out, if you don't know what it is that you want, how are you going to direct your energy to that? So that's why that's really important. And as I said, if you have limiting beliefs which are directly interfering or even indirectly interfering, then that's going to be also problematic. So releasing those limiting beliefs is fairly fundamental in most cases. And even if you're doing those things, in some cases, you're not going to be able to get enough energy, direct enough energy to what it is that you want, because there are other things that are interfering, that are draining your energy or siphoning it off to other things. So these lessons in this series are all about those things. So I addressed 4 of those already in the previous talks in this series. So I'm not going to go into detail on those probably today. But uh, then there is the matter of this lesson of awareness. So, well, before I talk about that, I said I won't go into much detail on the other things, but just so that it's clear, hopefully clear in the whole scheme of things, let me just briefly touch on the other some of the other lessons so that it can make all of this make sense, I think. Uh, so let's say I've got the desire for $1 million. I'm clear about that. I put my attention on that on a daily basis. Let's say I've got it written down. Okay, so and then I have a habit every day. I read that. So I've written it down and I read that every day. In case it's not clear to you, that would be a useful idea, something to do if you want to manifest something in your life. Write it down, read it every day. Hope you're taking notes on that. More important, I hope you do it because if you want to achieve success, those would be some really useful steps. Make a habit of it. So when is a time that you would do that each day? And then do it that time each day. Keep it simple. You're not going to form a habit if you make it really complicated. Keep it really simple. Don't stress about, have you written it exactly the right way, exactly the right words? Does it matter? Yeah, yes, but probably a lot less than you think. What's way more important is that you start the process. So, but let's say you've done that. You've written down, I want $1 million. I have $1 million. In my imagination, I have $1 million. Feeling good with my $1 million. I read this every day. I've established a habit. I put it next to my bed. I read it every morning when I wake up. I read it every evening before I go to bed. I've also got it posted on the refrigerator. So every time I go to the refrigerator, I read it. And I'm doing this, and I also take a little bit of time just to notice, well, now when I imagine myself having $1 million, what comes up? What kinds of thoughts come up? If I have any limiting beliefs that appear when I imagine myself having $1 million, if I notice them, then what do? I write them down. So I've written them down. I've got a list of the limiting beliefs. And then I use a process that works for me to release those, whatever that might be. There are so many different ways. I mean, fundamentally, when it really comes down to, it's just intention. So the other processes, can other specific processes for releasing limiting beliefs be helpful and supportive? Absolutely. However, if you don't know those processes, if you haven't learned them, then don't feel that you have to wait until you've learned them. You could start today nonetheless, just by practicing with intention. I choose to let go of this limiting belief. Just set that intention. I choose to let go of this limiting belief now. All parts of me which have been involved in maintaining this belief now let go of this belief and find new, better, more harmonious ways of achieving their positive intentions without the belief. See how that goes? Just set the intention, and then you might say, oh, but I don't know how to do that. I don't know how that works. Yeah, practice. Set the intention on a regular basis, and then just be open to noticing how that starts to work for you. If you insist that it has to work first time, immediately, give complete results, that would be great if it did, but what if it doesn't? You going to give up? So instead, what you could do is you could just be curious about it. Be curious about how that could work for you. Be curious about learning how it can work for you. Be curious about learning how it is starting to work for you. So now let's say I've done all of that. I've been doing that for weeks, months, maybe even years. And I'm just not seeing the results with this one. With other things, I've seen that it works. But for whatever reason, with this thing, I'm not seeing, it's just not, I'm not seeing the results. So now, is all hope lost? No. What I'm proposing is that all that's happening is that I have not yet been able to direct enough energy to this particular desire in order to manifest it. Now, why would that be? I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of variables at play. So if you're somebody who has to analyze the whole thing and know, well, why could I direct enough energy to manifest this other thing, but not this one? I don't know what to tell you. If that's your game, you might just stay stuck for a long time. But if you're willing just to explore with an open mind, then you might find that you start to get results, and then the knowledge will start to come to you as needed. What I can tell you then is that these one or more of these lessons that we've been exploring in this series are at play. So when it came to acceptance, or when it comes to acceptance, and remember that I've said it before and I'll say it again, with each of these lessons, I can only really scratch the surface. So in an hour, uh, there's no way that we could cover all of the ins and outs of the topic. I don't even pretend to know all of the ins and outs. There's so much, it's so rich. You could spend an entire lifetime and still learn more. Uh, one thing, just one from one angle, though, with acceptance, I could say, well, maybe I need to learn more about acceptance. Maybe I have been diverting energy. Maybe my energy has been drained because I've been rejecting aspects of my experience. Maybe I fight and struggle with things. I say, not this, this shouldn't be. Or maybe I say, it's not enough. So if I have $10, I say it's not enough. So I'm rejecting it instead of accepting it. Whatever it is, I can explore this lesson of acceptance. I can begin to practice more acceptance in my life. And guess what will happen? I'll have better energy management. So instead of wasting and squandering energy on rejection, by practicing acceptance, I get to actually now direct more of that energy to what I want. So it's possible that just by exploring that one lesson, suddenly money could start to flow through my life in ways that it didn't before. On the other hand, maybe maybe it's really more about care. Maybe I really just have not been practicing sufficient care. Like maybe I haven't been caring for what I have sufficiently. And maybe that's been draining my energy. So by practicing more care, care for what I have, care for my body, care for my life, care for the money that I have, being a better steward, then I also get to have more of that energy and direct it to what I want. So in this way, by uh, learning, by practicing these lessons, then I get to have better energy management. So I get to direct that energy to what I want instead of having it drained away. So now awareness, and as with the other lessons, uh, it's such a vast topic that there's really no way that we could cover all of it. And as with the others, I'm not even going to pretend like I know everything about it. This is an invitation. So I'm really just inviting you to either begin to explore this, or if you are already exploring it, to continue to explore it, to encourage you in that, because I know that it can offer you so much wealth in your life. So With awareness, let's start with what I think is a pretty I was gonna say I'll say obvious. Any word that I'm going to use is going to be the wrong word. I was going to say easy and obvious, but neither of those are the right words to use. Um, we'll start somewhere. We'll start somewhere, and this is where we're going to start. Um, so, a useful principle to be aware of is that you are creating all of your experience all the time, most of it unconsciously, but nonetheless, you are creating all of your experience all the time. Now, maybe you don't believe that, and that's okay. I'm not asking you to believe it, but rather I'm proposing it to you as something that you might be curious about. And if you're curious about it and you start to explore that possibility, you might find it fruitful. So I'm proposing to you that you create all of your experience all the time, most of it unconsciously. Now, if that is true, that you create all of your experience all the time, then that would mean, well, and also that you're creating most of it unconsciously. That would mean that it would mean many things. Among the things that it would mean would be that if there's something that you don't like, then you are creating that. And that means that the possibility exists that you could do it differently. So just think about this. I mean, just notice if there are aspects of your experience, if there are things which you experience that you don't like, particularly things that are recurring, especially if they recur frequently, like on a daily basis, which you don't like. Just pausing so you can maybe bring to mind something so you can just notice. And maybe you could just select one thing. I mean, maybe there are a lot of things that come to mind. I'm laughing at myself, not at you. Because I was just laughing because plenty of things come to mind for me. You know, maybe you are so much more evolved than I am, and you struggle to come up with anything. Good for you. Uh, or if you're like me, then no, it's not too hard to think of some things. Right. So just see if you could think of something that uh, you experience on a recurring basis that you would say is not optimal, something you don't like that much. And for our purposes right now, just select one thing. So even if there are many things that come to mind, just select one. And then you can repeat this with all of the things over time, but to start with, at least do one at a time. So hopefully you've selected one thing. Now, uh, my proposal, again, is that you create this experience. Now, that might be obvious to you and it might not be obvious to you. And in either case, awareness is going to be really, really helpful. So if it's obvious to you that you create the experience, fantastic. If it's not obvious to you, that's great too. Because this is really what I'm inviting you to is just an open, curious exploration about your experience and your creative role in that. To whatever degree you might be able to discover how you play a creative role in it. Even if you were to say, well, I'm not so sure that I create all of the experience, might there be some aspect of it that you could acknowledge that you create? So when you think about this experience, which is recurring in your life that you don't like, it's not optimal for you. Perhaps you could think of a recent time in which it occurred. And notice if you were to just slow that down in your memory slash imagination now. And go to the point just before you had that experience. And then play it through slowly and notice what happens. How does that occur? I mean, you'd have to admit, I hope, I think, that the experience itself is happening in you. It's your experience, the part that you have the problem with. Maybe that's not obvious. Maybe it is obvious. If it's not, if it is obvious, it's obvious. If it's not obvious, then just be curious about that and just notice, because maybe sometimes some people are in the habit of thinking that the thing that's the problem is outside of them. They think the problem is other people and the circumstances and whatever. And I get it. I mean, I do that too. But then just notice that actually the thing that you don't like isn't outside of you. Strange as that might seem, it's not outside of you. What you don't like is your experience, which is not outside of you. So I understand that there may be things that seemingly are happening outside of you. I say seemingly because we don't know. But definitely those things in and of themselves, as strange as it might seem, are not the problem. At least not what you have a problem with. They might produce the conditions, or they might be the conditions that you use to know to create the problem for yourself inside. But just notice that the actual experience that you don't like is happening in you. So be curious when you play that through slowly in your mind. Notice before you're experiencing that problem, then obviously you're not experiencing that problem. Now play it through slowly and notice what's the first thing that happens internally that lets you know that you're starting to experience that problem. So this is bringing more awareness, in case that wasn't clear. Bringing more awareness to your actual experience. Because a lot of the time, what happens is it just is on automatic. It plays really fast and it plays in the same way over and over and over, which by definition, because this is something you don't like, is a way that you don't like. So because it's playing really fast, you're not consciously aware of it. So this is a bit of useful trivia. When things play really fast, and how fast and how slow is going to be relative and to many factors, but fast equals unconscious. That's not bad. Unconscious is useful. We want to be able to do things unconsciously. You want to be able to, presumably, you want to be able to breathe unconsciously a lot of the time. You want to be able to digest your food unconsciously. You want to be able to walk unconsciously a lot of the time. You want to be able to do things without having to do it consciously. Because if you have to do it consciously, then that's the only thing you can do in that moment. At least it's the only thing you can do consciously. I should clarify that. You can only do one thing consciously at a time. You can do theoretically infinitely many things unconsciously at the same time, but only one thing consciously. So unconscious is useful in the right context. So it's not that unconscious is bad. It's just that if it's unconscious, then it's unconscious, which means it's probably going to just keep on playing out the same way or something very similar to the same way as it's always done. And if you don't like it, then perhaps making it conscious is useful. So slow means conscious. How slow? Depends on a lot of variables. So if you're not yet conscious enough of it, then slow it down even more until you can become aware of what's the first thing that you do internally that lets you know that you're beginning to experience that problem. So this is making it conscious, bringing more awareness to the actual process, because when it just plays out really fast unconsciously, you miss it. And that way, then you don't have any way, at least consciously, of changing it. You're just going to keep doing it the same way. But when you slow it down and you bring more conscious awareness to it, then there's a possibility of doing it differently. Now, sometimes just making it conscious is sufficient to produce the change. Oftentimes, it's not. So don't dismay if just making it conscious is not sufficient to produce the change you want, but it's still a necessary, important step. So now this amazing thing has happened. This thing which has been happening over and over and over and over and over, which you didn't understand before. You thought it was just happening. And now, through bringing more conscious awareness to it, suddenly you are aware of something about how you do it, which allows you to do it differently. So, and not only did you notice something, you noticed perhaps, maybe, one of the first things, if not the first thing, that you do internally to produce the problem. Well, that could allow you to actually change it. So, whatever it is that you notice, could you imagine doing it differently? Now, maybe this is not entirely clear, so let me just be a little bit more explicit. So for some of you, you already get it. For some of you, you might be scratching your head saying, I don't know, what on earth are you talking about? So let's say that, I'm just trying to think of an example. Let's say that I have, I would describe myself as being socially anxious, by which I mean that when I am in, when I'm around other people in a social situation, could be in a public place, could be in a private place, and I'm with a group of people, uh, I begin to, and let's say it's specifically when I'm uh, conversing with people, uh, I begin to feel uncomfortable, and sometimes so much so that it results in what I would describe as panic, and then I rush home and remain feeling extremely uncomfortable for several hours. So now I'm going to imagine, or I'm going to remember a time when this happened recently. And I'm going to go back to before I had the problem. So however far back I have to go. So this in and of itself is going to be really useful, because maybe I start to notice, wow, I actually start to have this problem hours before I even leave home. I'm not saying this will always be true. I'm just describing one possibility, right? Maybe I thought I only have the problem when I'm in the social environment, but maybe through bringing more awareness to it in this way, I might notice I actually start to have this problem hours before I even leave home. So then I can play this through very slowly, and I start to notice, well, what is the first thing that happens within me that I start to notice, where I start to notice that I'm having this problem, or that I'm going to have the problem, that the problem is starting. And maybe I notice that I have a thought that I hear, like a voice inside that says, uh, uh, I just I just had the uh, Adam Sandler skit. They're all gonna laugh at you pop into my mind. They're all gonna laugh at you. That's what happened. Um, so I won't say that. What if I know? So maybe I notice that the first thing that happens, I have a thought, like a voice that says, uh, uh, "No, nobody likes you. They um, they all secretly despise you." Well, isn't that interesting? So that tells me something about how I create that problem very early on. That's what I do. Now, is that the only thing that could happen? No. Plenty of other things could happen. Uh, I could see a flash, an image in my mind of anything. It could be something from childhood when, when children made fun of me or bullied me on the playground or whatever. I mean, it could be so many possibilities, but I want to notice whatever that is. Then I'm proposing I could experiment with doing it differently. This may or may not be necessary. Like I said, sometimes just having awareness in and of itself is all that's needed. Oftentimes, though, actually practicing doing something differently is useful. Um, so a lot of possibilities because awareness is what will awareness is not necessary. It's not really in and of itself about what strategies are used. Rather, it's what allows for the possibility of strategies being used if strategies are needed or useful. Um, but just since I'm going along this line of exploration, I'll just point out a few possibilities. These are not specific to awareness, but these are some possibilities that arise due to the awareness. So once I become aware of the process that I use in order to create that problem or start to create that problem for myself, then it allows me to experiment with different ways of doing it. So let's say it's it's a voice. This that part of the first thing that I'm aware of is this voice inside that says, "What did I say? Nobody likes you. They all secretly despise you." Something like that. So now I could experiment with that in so many ways. I'll give you a couple ways that can be extremely useful. These are not, as I said, these are not specific to awareness per se, but these are strategies you can start to use when you have the awareness of what you're already doing. So if you happen to notice that part of what you do in order to generate a problem for yourself involves a voice, then just one possibility, not the only possibility, but one possibility that can be extraordinarily useful and effective is to slow that down. So if the voice, whatever, I think I said something along the lines of nobody really likes you, they all secretly despise you. Okay, so I could slow that down consciously and add space between the words. So it'd be something, and I don't have to say it out loud, but in order to demonstrate, I'll say it out loud. It would be something like this. Nobody really likes you. They all secretly despise you. Strange as it might seem, that can be very useful. It can change the whole thing, can change the whole pattern. Uh, Another possibility, if it's a voice, is to notice whose voice it is. Notice the location of the voice. Strange as that might seem. It's somebody's voice. A lot of the time we'll just assume, oh, it's my voice. Not necessarily. You might be surprised. So pay attention. Whose voice is it and where is it? And then experiment with moving it and changing it or some combination of the two. That can also help. So sometimes it can be effective to change it to some sort of like, Donald Duck's voice or something like that. So just making changes to the way in which you do it can change the whole thing. But all this requires awareness in the first place. If it's an image instead of a sound, you can change those. You can change that as well. You can experiment. And like I said, these strategies that I'm giving are just things that you could experiment with. I'm not proposing that these are in any way strategies of awareness. These are just things that you could use once you have awareness of what's already there. You may not need to use them, but they could be interesting to explore. You can change content of images. You can also change the uh, just change the representation. So sometimes you just moving the location of the image or making it bigger or smaller or brighter or dimmer can make a world of difference. Um, Sometimes changing, as I said, changing the content can be useful, but it's not always necessary. Um, so those are some things that some strategies you could explore just to find out what happens. Um, and that will change how you do it. And therefore, you won't have the same experience. All of that, though, is through the power of awareness. And you can gain more awareness by, number one, having the intention to do so. And number two, slowing it down. Slowing down is really, 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 really useful. When things are fast, there's not really much you can do. It's very difficult. When you slow it down, suddenly, because you have more awareness, so many possibilities open up. Now, of course, when you're some a lot of the time, uh, the last thing we want to do is slow down because we feel compelled to continue to speed things up because we feel afraid, uncomfortable, and somehow we think we've got to move fast. There's no time for slowing down. And yet, slowing down is what's needed because slowing down is what will allow you to bring more awareness. In fact, slowing down and awareness are pretty much synonymous. If you slow down enough, you have to be aware. If you slow down enough, it becomes kind of psychedelic. If you really slow down enough. And by slowing down, I don't necessarily mean slowing down your speech or moving in slow motion. I mean slowing down within yourself. Just notice how fast things are happening within you and allow that to slow down. And then the more you allow it to slow down, notice automatically it brings more awareness. You become more aware of yourself, more aware of the process occurring within you, more aware of the distinction between you and the process occurring within you just by slowing down. And like I said, it opens up options. So, will that always automatically produce the change that you want? No. However, without that, the chances of you producing the change that you want drop fairly dramatically. And with it, the possibilities of making changes increase dramatically. So maybe I should have just called this whole thing slowing down, the power of slowing down. Hey, how about that? The power of slowing down. Nobody would nobody would watch that video. Power of slowing down. Stupid video. So fortunately, I won't call it that. Nobody wants to slow down. They don't know what they're missing. That's the truth. You don't know what you're missing until you slow down. Then suddenly you start to realize, like I said, you're creating your experience. So if you don't like it, then the good news is you can become aware of how you do it. But if you don't become aware of how you do it, you're going to keep doing it. Probably. There are exceptions to that. But slow down. You'll be happy that you did. It will bring more awareness. Through that, you can recognize more and more how you're creating your experience. If you don't like it, you can begin to change it. And a lot of the time, when we're so accustomed to things moving so fast and we think it's all happening to us, and then we probably, many of us will think, well, you know, how could that really help just to slow down and make a few changes to what I'm doing internally? How's that really going to help me? How's it going to help me just to become aware of a particular thought and to put space between words? Isn't that odd? I mean, did you notice it produces a change in you, doesn't it? When I do it, you notice that? So it does work. So we think, oh, that couldn't do it. Look at my big problems. How's that going to help me just to be more aware? How's that going to help me just to change these little things inside of myself? That won't be enough. I've got big problems. I got to rush about trying to solve them. And yet, this is kind of the best kept secret. If you slow it down, then you can begin to experiment. And if you're willing to experiment, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. It may or may not, and probably more may not, give you the kind of dramatic, instantaneous changes that so many people are still holding out hope for. You know, the kind that have people still doing yet another ayahuasca session, yet another session with LSD, yet another, because they're like, it's going to be big, dramatic. So these kinds of small things, they don't seem like they'll work because we're looking for something different. At least we think we're looking for something different. But if you tell the truth, and I'm not saying none of those other things have any value, I'm just saying if you really tell the truth, they're not consistently, reliably giving you the real results that you want. So maybe slowing down bringing more awareness and exploring small, simple, almost trivial seeming changes might give more satisfactory results. You'll never know unless you try it out sincerely. Not just once, many times. So congratulations for sticking around. I think that probably indicates either that you fell asleep or maybe that you have received some useful information that you can begin to put into practice. And you can let me know what kinds of results you get. So we will wrap up for today. For those who are here live, we'll stay on for the group coaching. And for those who will watch us on YouTube, I just want to say a few words in parting. If you would like to join these meetings live so that you can enjoy the slowness, because I know you watch it at 2x speed on YouTube. I know you. I know you do. If you really want to get the full benefits by joining live, you could do that. And you can get that information for how to join live by signing up at my website, joeylott.com. I'll provide the link in the description. And when you go there, you'll see there's an offer on the homepage to receive a free ebook. It covers 5 of the fundamental laws governing creation. I had a thought over the weekend about maybe doing something different, offering something different. So maybe that won't be there when people see this. Maybe something else will be there. If there's something else, it will still work the same. But if it's still there, then get it while you can, because there may be something different soon, which will be at least as valuable. But if you want to see that, if you want to get that, then you'd have to act fast. Maybe, unless not. But in any case, when you sign up there for whatever that is that's available there, you'll also get information about how to join these meetings live. It will be sent to you in an email automatically when you sign up. And when you do join these meetings live, then you have the added benefit of being able to stay on for the group coaching that follows the talk. So that's what I'm going to say about that. So do that. Sign up. The link will be in the description, as I already said. And I'm going to wrap this up now. So for those who will watch this on YouTube, I'm going to sign off. Blessings to you. Bye for now. Take care.